All right, let's jump right in. We're about to explore a seriously mind-bending idea, one that could flip your whole understanding of reality upside down. It comes from the work of Dr. Tony Nader, and it all boils down to one question. A question so simple, you might miss how huge it really is.
I mean, just pause on that for a second. What if the most fundamental thing isn't atoms or galaxies or the chair you're sitting on, but the awareness you're using to hear my voice right now? What if that is the source code for everything?
So here's the big split. On one side, you've got the standard scientific view. Your brain, this 3-pound piece of matter, somehow creates everything you think and feel. That's the physicalist model. But on the other side, there's this wild alternative. The consciousness, and we're talking with a capital C here, isn't a product of the brain. It's the source of the brain and everything else.
Now, before we can really get our heads around that new idea, we've got to understand the one that most of us are living in every single day. So let's start with the standard story of you. This right here is the materialist viewpoint, put perfectly by Nobel laureate Francis Crick, who co-discovered DNA. It's a powerful idea, and it's really the bedrock of modern neuroscience. The thinking is that everything that makes you you, your hopes, your dreams, your memories, it can all be boiled down to physical stuff happening inside your skull.
But there's this giant nagging question that this model just can't seem to shake. Philosophers call it the hard problem. Okay, we can map the brain's electrical signals when you see the color red, but how do those signals create the feeling, the actual experience of redness? How does a bunch of molecules create the feeling of being in love or the taste of a fresh strawberry? It's a gap that science hasn't been able to cross.
So this new way of thinking suggests that maybe we've been looking through the wrong end of the telescope the whole time. And to even consider that, we have to start questioning the one thing we trust the most.
You know, we all live by that old saying, seeing is believing. Our entire sense of a solid, real world out there is built on what our eyes, our ears, and our hands tell us. But what if our senses aren't the reliable reporters we think they are?
Think about this for a second. For thousands of years, every single human saw, with their own eyes, that the sun moves across the sky. It was the most obvious fact in the world, and yet it was a total illusion. Our senses were telling us one thing, but the deeper reality was something else entirely.
And, history shows us that challenging these so-called facts from our senses is never easy. The ideas we completely take for granted today, well, they used to be seen as absurd, even dangerous. It's just a great reminder that what feels like common sense can sometimes be the biggest roadblock to a deeper truth.
So, if our senses can be fooled, and if the physical world isn't the final answer, then what is? And that question takes us right to the heart of this new paradigm, the idea of a conscious universe.
Okay, this next part is super important. When we talk about consciousness with a capital C, we're not talking about your individual thoughts and feelings. No, we're talking about something way bigger, a single, fundamental field of pure being that's underneath everything. Our personal, lowercase c consciousness is just one little ripple in that huge ocean.
The best way to really get this is with a metaphor. So just picture a single, infinite ocean. It's not made of water, it's pure potential. It has no boundaries, it's beyond space and time. This is consciousness.
Now, all over the surface of this ocean, you've got waves rising and falling, constantly changing. Well, those waves are everything we see and experience in the physical world. Planets, people, your own thoughts, they're all just expressions of that one ocean. And here is the absolute key. A wave might look like its own separate thing for a little while, but is it ever really separate from the ocean? No way. It's just the ocean moving in a particular pattern. In this view, we're not separate little beings walking around. We're all just expressions of one single unified field of consciousness.
Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds really philosophical, really abstract. But the argument here is that this isn't just an idea, it's an experience you can actually have. And there are specific ways to get there, what are called technologies of consciousness.
Now, when we say technology, don't think of smartphones or software, think of it as a practical tool. In this case, it means systematic mental techniques, like transcendental meditation, that are designed to let the mind effortlessly settle down and experience its own source, that quiet, unbounded ocean of pure consciousness we were just talking about. And according to this model, this isn't just a one-time thing. It's actually a path of development. Just like we grow physically, our consciousness can evolve.
It starts by tapping into a fourth state of consciousness called transcendental consciousness, and can eventually unfold into higher states where that feeling of unboundedness becomes a permanent part of your everyday life.
So what happens when people start having this experience on a wide scale? Well, this is where the claims get really, really big, scaling up from changing yourself to changing all of society.
It's this idea called the Maharishi effect. And the theory goes that if even a small fraction of a population starts practicing these techniques, it creates a kind of field effect of order and calm that radiates out, lowering stress and negativity in the whole community.
Now that might sound pretty far-fetched, but there are dozens of studies that proponents point to. For example, during a big experiment in Washington, D.C. back in 1993, researchers actually predicted in advance that a large group of meditators could lower violent crime. And according to their data, at the height of the experiment, violent crime dropped by a mind-boggling 23% below the predicted levels.
And check this out. This shows some of the longer-term data from a 17-year study. The dotted line jumping up and down, that's the size of a big meditation group. The solid line is a U.S. stress index, which combines really tough stats like crime rates and mortality. And you can see this fascinating correlation. When the number of people in the group goes up, the national stress index seems to go down.
Ultimately, what this is all about is a profound shift in perception. It's about going from seeing a world made of separate little bits and pieces to experiencing an interconnected whole. The poet William Blake just captured it perfectly. This ability to see the entire universe reflected in every single part of it. Which brings us right back to the beginning and leaves us with this final question. If this radical idea is actually true, that the universe isn't a bunch of separate things but one single ocean of being, then what does that make you? It means you're not just a wave, you're the whole ocean, experiencing itself through your eyes. And that is a thought worth sitting with.